Denver Rubber Company is the most reliable local partner for your long-term projects, and Denver Rubber Company is an essential business and has filled many needs for several different industries across this country during this crazy time. They are family-owned and operated and die-hard Denver sports fans, plus DRC is known for cutting and supplying rubber snowplow blades, but they also provide custom-cut rubber, foam gaskets, hose assemblies, even cut metal parts. They have you covered. Give them a call today at 1-800-259-0010 for any of your needs, or visit them at drcfirst.com/DNVR. Welcome in to the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, presented by Davidson's Beer, Wine, and Spirits, my go-to shop for my Breckenridge Brewery. I got one Avalanche with me right here. They also have all your other alcohol needs covered. I'm Rudo. He's AJ Haefele. It is a Thursday episode of the podcast, and we actually have some more hockey news. Once a week now, they're starting the drip of news for the hockey world to talk about, as the NHL has solidified its position a little bit more on the playoff format in general, starting off with the fact that the NHL and NHLPA have agreed to an extension of the CBA in regards to escrow numbers and other things that we don't really get the details on, but there's an agreement in place for playing these playoff games in what is likely to be August and September at this point. So that's good news, but more importantly, and more things that we can actually talk about is, first of all, as every round of the playoffs happens, these teams will be reseeded. So kind of a reverse of the 1-8 seeding that they had gone with for the last, how long has it been? 6, 7, 8 years. And then they are also having best of sevens for everything but the play-in round. So this will be a full and complete playoffs.
Yeah, so my number one takeaway is whatever talk there was about an asterisk is dead.
Yep.
It seemed like the big thing was if you're not playing full playoffs, it's not a valid playoffs. Well,
not only are they playing a full playoffs, any team that was anywhere close to a playoff spot has a chance to play their way in.
Right, and 16 of the 24 teams, if they're going to win the cup, have to win 5 playoff series.
Yep.
Which has never been done before. So, if there's going to be an asterisk, it needs to be because they went through the hardest gauntlet in NHL history.
This cup is actually better than the other cups.
Right.
Asterisk.
It's already going to be, in my opinion, it's already the hardest cup to win ever. Now with this format in place, and this is what's agreed upon, this is obviously making the assumption that everybody's healthy enough to play and the games happen.
Yeah.
Then this is the most difficult cup to win because you have no momentum. Everybody is healthy. Everybody is at starting on the same foot, and that's not true when you get to the playoffs in normal years.
Teams are beat up. Yeah.
This year, Carolina was going to be missing Dougie Hamilton for their stretch run. They went and they got Brady Shea from the Rangers because they were going to be missing Dougie, and they had injury issues on the back end, so they went and they shored it up. And now a guy like Sami Vatanen may not even play for them.
Well, the other side of that is, I guess, the same side, honestly. The teams that are normally battling for the 8th seed and having to play all out for the last 2 months of the season are going to come in fully rested against these higher seeds as well. So they're not nearly as out of gas as I would say as a team that's been cruising to the playoffs.
There will certainly be a different intensity with the qualifying round than the round robin seeding.
Yeah.
But with today's announcement, the round robin seeding got significantly more important.
It did.
Because with no home ice advantage to be had for any of these teams, that's the expectation anyway. Obviously, we've heard that, hey, maybe if things go really, really well, a pie in the sky scenario, the Stanley Cup Finals could be played in the team's home cities.
Yep.
But we're not even sure these are going to happen anyway, so I'm not really considering that as a super strong possibility. I think that with the lack of home ice advantage, this was the best way for the league to incentivize the round robin games to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
Because it gives the top seed a big advantage in that they get to play the lowest seed every round.
You can't be the 4 seed and luck out because Chicago beats Edmonton, and then you're the 4 seed playing the 12 seed anymore.
Right.
You have, with the reseeding, it gives every reason to go for the number 1 seed instead of just saying, "Oh, look at this potential good matchup for us if we weasel our way around a little bit."
It not only does it give you the going for the 1 seed, but it's also not getting the 4th seed. Right. Because that means taking on the 1 seed in round 2 if you win your first round series.
Yep.
And you just don't want that. Of course you want to miss that team. If you're not going to be the top team in the round robin, you don't want to play the one that is.
Exactly right. To set up your path now is something you can realistically do. It's not at the hands of randomness because of the reseeding program.
Right. It's not like the NCAA bracket where you just never know.
Like, oh, sorry, you were in the same bracket as North Carolina, so
take
that L.
Right. Like, oh, that's too bad. I'm sorry. Now it's you.
If you get the 2nd seed, you don't play the 1 seed until the finals or the conference finals. So
the difficulty of your path will be decided by your own results. So it's very much a whatever you accomplish or don't accomplish creates the obstacles in front of you. And that way you can't look at anybody else. There's no blaming the NHL. There's no blaming the format. There's none of that. You go and you get the results that you deserve. And that's it. Like whatever happens. And you can't. I think that this was the best decision. It's weird that they're doing it every round. And really, it doesn't. Beyond round 2, it doesn't really matter because there's
4 teams left
with no home ice advantage.
Yeah,
it's like, so what? So it's it really only mattered for the 2nd round. Yeah. To be honest, like that's
I would agree.
The round robin seeding it's great, but like for the conference finals, there's only 2 teams and there's no home ice advantage, so it's like, okay, great.
Neat. Go play those games.
Yeah, it's 1 seed against the 3 seed. Wow, that was crazy. Or it's the 5 seed against the 9 seed. Whatever it ends up being. So this was a good announcement, and I think that this just added juice to the round robin games, where it sort of felt like these teams would have taking it seriously, but
it's also 3 warm-up games for them mostly.
And like they will be more than preseason games, but less than regular season games.
Right. And now there's some reason to get up and go for them, basically.
Yeah. Now it's like, okay, you guys need to take this about as seriously as the qualifying round guys are.
Yep. So excited about that.
It should make for fantastic hockey. Like this was the best decision, I think, for this format, and it should make for great hockey. And to be honest with you, if this ends up being as much fun as we all think it's going to be, they should strongly consider adopting this format. Permanently.
I'm all for super tournaments, so
yeah.
I'm trying to think. So AJ and I are big GSL, which is an esport fan watchers, and I'm trying to think.
GSL finals on Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. But you're in a best of 1 against St. Louis. How do you cheese a hockey matchup?
What's the 6 pool?
Yeah.
I don't think you can.
Do you all right, it's 0-0 in the first and you draw a power play and you pull your goalie?
No, I think what you would do is you would play 5 forwards.
Yeah, that was the thought too.
You would. It's nowhere near the same.
All in life,
well, because 6 pool or proxy 2 racks, or a cannon rush, those are all.
If it doesn't work, you just lose.
It's done. It's over. If you don't score on a power play in the first the first period, you still have the rest of the game to continue to do whatever.
That's true.
So there isn't really an all-in strat that they could try and pull out of the bag. There are things that they could do to be sneaky. You could, if you wanted, you could 7 defensemen and have Bo and Byram come in and just play offensive shifts only, and cut one of your forwards. Be like, oh,
there you go.
We'll rotate McKinnon as the 4C, and we'll chop Belmar off the roster.
I like it. I like the strats. Go DTs.
I went DTs against Elite last night.
Oh boy, pretty good.
It was a well-fought. I should send you that replay. It was a well-fought game. Won.
Nice.
But it was
an adventure.
Yeah.
To say the least.
Yeah. They made it tough.
Well, we can talk about another video game now, that being WGT Golf, the most popular golf game in the world and DNVR's official gaming partner. You can go right now and download WGT from DNVRgolf.com. And we are all set up now with our secondary clubhouse, which you can join and get in on the tournaments. We're trying to fill up that clubhouse, which will put us to 500 members on WGT Golf, so we can have these huge tournaments.
About every 2 hours, somebody else has joined that.
Yeah, so people are still rolling in on this. So get in before we fill that one up, so you don't have to be in the third clubhouse. You can
Which won't be any less than clubhouses 1 or 2.
That's true.
It's just more work for me, to be honest.
I mean, you want to call yourself an OG, right? When we have DNVR Clubhouse 10 up and rolling, be like, oh yeah, I'm in Clubhouse 2. I've been around the whole time.
Right. I've been winning tournaments for a long time.
Exactly. So more than 20 million players around the world, WGT Golf, and even without the clubhouse, you can always challenge us on our DNVR lounge. I know Adam loves to play the 1-hole shootouts where you just hope to get lucky. To win and beat a guy. You can play on amazing real-to-life courses, including Pebble Beach, Bethpage Black, St. Andrews, a ton of other ones as well, whether it be match play, stroke play, closest to the hole, or, the horrible hell of the hardest settings on everything like AJ did for our last tournament. But either way, it's a ton of fun. Give it a try today, dnvrgolf.com. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. So, while the formatting for the playoffs continues to get more and more figured out, something that we don't have a great read on is player rights as far as prospects and players getting signed and coming over from Europe are concerned. In a normal year, June 1st would mark the expiration of rights. For the Avs, that would mean just Brandon Sagen. As for college players, the date is August 15th. But August 15th is likely to come in the middle of whatever these playoffs are. So there's a reasonable expectation that could get extended as well. And the big conversation there is Cam Morrison and whether he gets signed by this team, how he fits in, a lot of things, a lot of moving parts going on there.
So the interesting situation here is the contract situation. The Avs sit at 46 NHL contracts. They were at 47, and then Igor terminated his contract and went back to the KHL.
Yep.
Which we didn't really talk about, but from a little bit of poking around that I've done, it wasn't so much like Igor hated the Avs. It wasn't like when Mironov left and all he did was trash the Avalanche.
Yeah.
It was first of all, he left $92,000 in signing bonus money on the table to leave. And then it was also, if there's no AHL season this year, he could just be not playing hockey for a year.
Right.
And so with the uncertainty of the AHL year and even the start of the AHL year, even if it gets started in January, it gets started in October, we don't know what that looks like. And so because of that uncertainty, he had a guaranteed job back in the KHL, so he took that opportunity. And so that's what that was. It was more of just a job security thing, and that he was not going to make the Avalanche.
Yeah.
Out of training camp, and he had
would seem pretty clear. Yeah.
He had he had an out clause in his contract, which is very standard for European players.
Yep.
If they do not make their NHL clubs, they can go back to they can leave and terminate their contracts and go to Europe and find other opportunities.
Yeah.
So that they're not. A lot of Europeans don't want to sit around and spend their careers in the American League. They'd rather go back to the country that they're from and play pro at home, which totally understandable decision. So anyway, this all relates to Cam Morrison, I swear.
Well, yeah, just to add to Igor, from people I had talked to around the Eagles organization as well, I don't think he had adjusted the best. Like, he still didn't really have a solid grasp on English, and you're trying to live on your own as a kid for the first time in a foreign country like that.
There are things we could talk about in another pod that I think the Avalanche should be doing infrastructure-wise to try and help those kids out and help them adjust, especially the Russian kids.
Yep.
Because Finnish and Swedish kids are learning English from a young age.
They know enough to get around the country, yeah.
Russian kids are not. So
a logistical issue when it comes to Russians, put it that way.
Yeah, and so we could get into this conversation on another day.
For sure.
For right now, Cam Morrison, the conversation with Morrison and why the Igor thing is interesting is because the Avs, they chose not to sign Brandon Sagen, and if they choose not to sign Cam Morrison, they will have 0 incoming rookies. Incoming contracts, ELCs that have not already been signed. Like if Bowen Byram shows up, his contract's already been signed. Yeah, he signed that ELC last year.
Realistically, there's a chance that the only new ELC contract they sign is Annunen, who we know is staying in Europe for a year.
Right, and so like he's not, he's not an incoming rookie because then he's not coming over here.
Exactly,
he's staying in Finland for the year. So there's the possibility that they have and depending on what happens with the NHL team, they sit at that 46 contracts also includes like Jason Magna and Mark Alt.
Yep.
And Antoine Bibeau and Hunter Miska. So if they were to let I imagine they'll have to bring one of Miska or Bibeau back.
Sure.
I guess there's the possibility they would bring both, although I don't know why. Who knows, right? They've been so weird about.
I mean, you can throw Hutchinson's name in
goaltenders.
there too.
Yeah, Hutchinson, of course, would also go in there. So they've got a couple of contracts. Like they won't bring all those guys back for sure. Mm-hmm. Magna, you can expect that they will replace with another AHL veteran. Mark Alt, probably the same thing. You can, for depth purposes, whatever. And so you expect some of these, Nieto they let go, Barbario, Connaughton, they could let both of those guys go. Some of those guys will get replaced. Some of them won't. So they should be that they're already at 46 means that they'll have some flexibility. But the difference, because of the pandemic, the difference is that August 15th deadline no longer comes after. It no longer comes after the offseason has already taken place.
By the time the Avs would have had to sign Cam Morrison, they would know exactly how many contracts they have in a normal year.
They would know how many contracts they would have, not just this year, but extend the commitments that they would have extending into next year as well.
Yep.
And that's going to matter because next year there could be a huge wave of incoming young players.
You're talking 7+?
Yeah. So Annunen comes over.
Yep.
You're looking at the possibility of all of these guys could get ELCs. Most of them should, but I'm going to run down the list real quick. But Alex Bocage, Luka Burzan, Nikolai Kovalenko, Trent Miner, Sasha Mutala, Alex Newhook, Sampo Ranta, and Danila Zharabalov. If you count Annunen, that's actually 9 players. Now, we talk Newhook as I count Newhook there. That's just for contract purposes. He'd obviously be more of an NHL focus. Kovalenko could be too, just sort of depending on what he wants. But when you're just talking about ELCs entering into the the conversation. Did I say Trent Miner? I said Trent Miner.
Yeah.
And so that's 9 new contracts that would be entering the organization. If Cam Morrison were to sign an ELC, it's a 2-year commitment.
Yep.
So he would be on the books when theoretically those 9 guys show up. Now, having 9 guys show up is pretty unprecedented. That's insane.
I mean, maybe they decide not to sign Miner. Maybe Zarabilov stays in Russia.
Right, exactly. Those are the conversations. Like Miner, we'll see. There's 2 Russian kids. Luka Burzan.
Yeah. Is he gonna get a contract? I mean, but even if you chop down some of those, it's realistic to expect 5 or 6 contracts.
Yeah, I think Bokaj, one of the Russians. Obviously, Ananin is for sure. That's happening. And then Mutala, Ranta
would give you 5.
And then Newhook in the NHL. That's a 6th contract.
Sure.
So I think that's 6 contracts, and that's a pretty steady influx. If the Avs are sitting at 45 contracts and say they want to give all 9 of them, I doubt it, because it seems unlikely that they would want to give both Miner and Ananin, especially with Werner still around.
Yeah.
It's, the ECHL, as we've talked about, is not a death knell for goaltenders. It's the one position that actually gets developed there. So Miner could sign and go there for a year while the bodies kind of work themselves out.
Yeah.
And the shuffle in the organization is still happening. What's up with Grubauer? What's up with Frankie? Does Ananin steal a job? Is Werner legit? Like, whatever. All those questions can just continue to work themselves out over time. But all of this relates to the Cam Morrison contract situation, because while it's a 2-year ELC, and while you're looking at it now and saying, well, they could just sign him and they would be at 47. If they have that many guys that they're looking at bringing in next year, if Morrison is a guy that they're on the fence about, you don't want to give him the hard NHL contract commitment that you're then just stuck with. That you're either having to move somebody out next year that you don't want to move out, or you are not signing somebody else, or whatever. It has an effect. Like, it has a trickle down effect on the decisions that you make.
Yep.
So Morrison, it becomes just a contract numbers game where they would have known had they had 7 openings. They're at 43, 44 contracts.
Not too worried about it. Yeah.
August 15th rolls around and they're like, hey, we can sign Morrison pretty easily.
Yep.
And that's fine. Not knowing that now will complicate that situation, and I would not be surprised if they let him test the market.
Do you believe there's much of a market there for him?
I personally probably not. Yeah. I don't expect that there's much, but that will be the decision. And if he goes onto the market and he can't get an NHL deal anywhere else, the Avs doing what they did with Sajin last year, where they gave him an AHL deal and said, hey, let's see how this goes. Part of the
org, we just need the contract spot. Yeah,
exactly. And so let's see how it goes. And if this goes well, like they just showed with Miska, if you play well enough and they absolutely need the body, then they could give a guy an NHL deal.
Yeah.
And that's where with Morrison, it would be a show me deal. Hey, go and prove it. And so that's where the pandemic kind of sets up an interesting situation.
Yep.
Where they have to make the decision on Morrison before they do the rest of their contracts, and they can't let that play out like they might have wanted to. And now they are kind of just stuck.
Decisions have to be made on expectations or estimations.
Yeah, right. Well, what is he? What do how has he developed in college? Is it was Notre Dame holding him back? Can he still be that big body with a little bit of skill that you hope turns into Jamie McGinn? Or is it, did he just not develop enough in his college career, whatever aspect of his game that you'd like to nitpick?
It's also tough because we've seen the Avs, especially since they've moved to the Eagles, having a penchant for playing a lot of veterans in their AHL lineup. Well,
Yeah.
they have 6 ELCs coming in a year from now. Is Morrison as a 7th real prospect? You have Nick Henry still on the team. How many is too many for the team to handle?
Right. And how much does no incoming rookies help a guy like Nick Henry to actually get pushed up the lineup?
Another year of opportunity. Yeah.
You know, how much does it give a guy like Logan O'Connor just one more year to push and carve out and say, hey, this is a guy that he's worked very hard. He's done everything asked of him, and he's shown decently in his NHL stint. Can he be the guy that comes in and is now the 14th forward or the 13th forward if we let a Kamenev go? Yeah. You know, like there's just more opportunity for all of those guys. You know, and depending on how many of the AHL veterans they want to bring back, guys, the Condras of the world, which I've said, if you want to have 3 veterans, it's fine.
Yeah.
But it's when you start getting into the Kale Kessies that sucks.
2 things for me. Playing ECHL lifers, essentially, don't do that. And when you don't have a single prospect in your AHL's top 6, that feels real bad.
Especially when you have pedigree there.
Yeah.
You've got picks. Like you've used picks
on players that you're trying to get NHLers out of.
Right. Like you've got AJ Greer and Martin Kaut and Shane Bowers. And it's like you signed Ty Lewis after an amazing end of his WHL career. You signed Sheldon Dries after a great AHL season. Like you drafted Nick Henry at the top of the 4th round. Like,
yeah.
Can we see some of these?
Play more than 8 minutes a game in the AHL? Yeah. Yeah.
And we saw like Martin Kaut started to get a little bit more minutes towards the end of the year. The light went on. He played well. He got the call up, and look at that. He was ready to rock. Shane Bowers had a very, very encouraging second half of the season. Let's not worry about the wing thing for right now.
Yeah. The different conversation for a different day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have to get too much further into that part of things. We'll get into Kaut a little bit more, but first, AJ, 6 ELCs. What is that for an AHL team potentially?
A total lifeblood of talent, an injection of skill. Could you? I mean, I know what you're going for here, but could you imagine like Sampo Ranta and Alex Bocage on a line together?
Oh man, yeah. You throw, I don't know,
throw
like a
just
distributor.
For fun. Let's throw Alex Newhook in the middle of them,
just to distribute the puck and watch the Eagles top line just murder kids in the AHL.
Right, and then like you roll out Mutala and Henry,
and they like just work people to death. Yeah,
yeah. And
yeah,
that
would be super fun. Well,
this is an injection of real talent. I mean, that kind of talent would definitely be game changing.
We got there, just like Strava Craft Coffee, the game-changing CBD-infused coffee. It'd been a while since we went with that one, so had to bring it back. But you can now purchase it in K-Cups for your Keurig or get the original whole bean and ground options as well. And you'll get 20% off when you use code DNVR20 at checkout online. Be sure to tweet at Strava, tweet at us when you use them. They're a partner of ours for a long time now, and we really appreciate you supporting us and supporting our partners as well. The CBD is awesome. It can help with migraines, aches and pains, anxiety, many other things as well. So, give it a try for yourself. DNVR 20. The CBD is non-psychoactive. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, presented by Davidson's with Rudo and AJ. So you mentioned the man himself, and one of the oddities of this new format is what is going to happen with Martin Kaut. He's played his 9 games in the NHL. He cannot play another game, certainly, to allow the contract to slide. However, an 82-game season was not completed here. And there has been some chatter
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
About how a lot of statistics, a lot of things around the league are getting prorated for this shortened season, right?
Yeah. Players have bonuses on the line,
right?
For hitting certain statistical benchmarks that their agents will be able to argue they did not hit
82 games, right? So
this is where it comes into play with Kaut, because if they decide to prorate all stats across the board and just say, hey, we're going to prorate all of this, then
he was on pace to play like 10 and a half games.
He will get a 10th game assumed,
right,
under a prorated solution. So they would give him a theoretical 10th game, and despite Colorado having made the decision that night, Jared Bednar said after the game, we won't play him again. He will go back down to the Eagles. He's done, because the management has made the decision that the contract is more important than having him up here and trying to fit him into the lineup. And at the time, it was kind of interesting because they had a lot of injury issues. Now, it's not even a question, because he most definitely will not be in the lineup when those playoffs open up. Because why would he be? We're talking about Jost or Nieto getting cut out of lineup, and you would have both of those guys ahead of Martin Kaut in the pecking order right now on a healthy roster.
Yep.
So
it's hard to argue with that. I mean, the one thing it does do there is Kaut could be an injury fill-in, but it comes at the cost of the year on his contract.
So this is the wrinkle here where this decision matters for Colorado. If that 10th game gets assumed and the contract begins, then the Avs have no reason not to bring Kaut on the road as part of the 28 skater roster.
Yep.
And wherever he is in that pecking order, we know he's damn sure in there. In that conversation of he'll be one of those forwards.
Ahead of Kamenev, probably.
Well, and like somewhere in there, depending on which guy gets hurt, which role, which position, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like, however he would get into it, it would be worth bringing him, because if the contract is started no matter what, and that's what they have to live with, then taking him only makes sense. It would make no sense to leave him off that roster, because you're like, oh, well, we don't want to get stuck in a situation where we have to play him and we burn the contract and whatever, right?
Yep. And
so if it gets prorated out and he gets that 10th game, the contract begins, he goes. He's on the 28 skater roster, assuming the 28 is the actual final number. If it's 26, he probably still goes.
Still on it, yeah.
So that's kind of an interesting situation that they have sort of hanging in the balance.
Yep.
If they do not prorate that out and he does not get that 10th game assumed, he probably doesn't go on that roster. I say probably. They would have reason to not bring him.
If he doesn't get the thing assumed, even if he goes, though, there's no chance that he ever plays, even if the Avs get decimated by injury.
And that's the situation that they'd have a healthy body. They'd have a player that could contribute. Are you so worried about the contract that you're going to give up a chance at the cup during a cup run? You're going to give up skill? Yeah. Because I think if they were to take him, they'd be saying, hey, he might be the last guy that will play, but we're damn sure going to play him if we get to it. And that's, I think that's the decision that they would have to make, because, you take him, you might be in a position where you have to play him, where you have to eat that. I mean, if they don't prorate it out and he stops at the 9 games, and they let that be, the Avs may not even take him, just because they're going to say, hey, we don't want to play him under any circumstances, so we're going to have him come to training camp, have him skate, have him practice for a month, use it as a jumping off board for a springboard for the actual training camp for next season in December, whatever it ends up being.
Yeah.
And then, whatever, like however that proceeds from there. And then somebody else gets that roster spot. Maybe AJ Greer gets to slide into that, because we haven't even had that conversation. Every time we talk about the skating, which guys go, we completely ignore AJ Greer.
Well, there might be some validity as to why,
I'm
but
just saying, like, we always completely ignore his existence anymore. And it's just this Kaut situation. It's interesting because what if they don't prorate it? The Avs leave Kaut at home. Greer gets himself into a game and finds a job.
-3 or goes +3. Yeah.
Right. And like summons the best of his ability. And we see the AJ Greer that I've certainly believed in for years.
Yep.
And it's like he's physical, he's making an impact, he's hitting guys, he's causing chaos on the forecheck, his skating is where it needs to be. You know, he's playing smart. He's not getting himself thrown into the box just because he's trying to be a tough guy, but he's actually playing that pesky role to a very effective degree. You know, maybe that's the chance. Maybe he can turn it around.
I mean, the other side of that coin is the Avs don't bring Kaut, they get injured, and all of a sudden they're not icing the best lineup they could have been. Because realistically, who's ahead of Kaut? O'Connor, maybe. Tynan, maybe.
Yeah.
And
maybe Kamenev, depending.
I wouldn't put Kamenev ahead on my list. I'll put you.
I wouldn't either, but I bet they do.
And you know, you mentioned it before. Also, a center gets hurt, Kamenev's going to fit that a little bit better.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's not an easy decision either way, I don't think. But
I mean, we're still talking though. They would have to get 5 bodies in,
right? It's a lot.
You're talking like you're talking about. Okay, those guys are ahead of Kaut just from the Eagles. We're not even talking about
Wilson,
right? We're not even talking about Nieto and Wilson, who it's like those are going to be the first 2 guys off the bench.
Yeah.
And if they're on the ice, then you know maybe it's Belmar and Jost, or I can't imagine a world where Matt.
There are 14 skaters that are ahead of everyone coming from the Eagles.
Yeah, right. And then there's the Eagles pecking order.
Right.
So like we're talking about like the bottom here of the forward guys, but I do think that it's because they've had the conversations about prorating and how they haven't decided how they want to handle that for player bonuses and contract situations. That's something that's up in the air for Colorado.
Yep, for sure.
And for that contract, if you're Martin Kaut's agent, you're like,
let's
go, prorate it, do it. And you're trying to get us started. If you're the Avs, you're looking at that and you're saying, okay, the 3rd year of that deal, we will be into new contracts for all these guys. Landeskog, Makar, Burakovsky, the contracts we talked about yesterday that are going to combine for $20 million.
Yeah, right.
And you're saying, hey, if Kaut is coming off of, if Kaut's making $2 million that year versus the, what is this, 800 and versus the $900,000, this is a guy that's he could be making
left to play with, yeah.
Right, like that's especially with the uncertainty of the cap and the situation that the league is in right now, like that might matter. You might say, "Oh, well, who cares? Just burn it and play him." And there were a lot of those people that made that argument. I know I certainly said it in the moment a bunch of times, but business-wise, the business decision, because they are going to be completely healthy and he's like 15th on that pecking order. I think that it makes sense to just let him be if they want, but that's where the whole conversation started today. It was like, hey, if they prorate this, if they don't, this has an effect on Kaut. And no matter what happens, he will still not be expansion draft eligible.
There we go. I think that is how we can end the show. Perfect way to wrap it up. I will say, whatever the Avs do with their roster, they're going to have to do some manscaping to it, trimming a little bit of the edges around on things. And, I don't want to call any hockey player the pubic hair because every single one of them could beat the crap out of me, but
also just sort of a rude thing to say to someone.
Exactly. So, either way, though, if you're looking to shave your pubes, Manscaped has you covered with the new Lawnmower 3.0 and the whole perfect package, which includes anti-chafe deodorant, new spray-on toner to keep everything fresh and in place down below the belt. You can even get it all in a premium carrying case for on-the-go travel and use when you order from manscaped.com. And when you use code DNVR20, you'll get 20% off and free shipping. Don't wait. Get on it now, and your balls will thank you. That's it for today's show. Should be back Friday with a new show. I believe we're calling it Free Skate Fridays, where we will have on some guests, do some trivia and some fun stuff. Hope y'all will tune in for that one and have some fun with us. A new thing we want to try and do with a little bit more regularly and bring people on and yeah, just enjoy our Fridays. So we will talk to y'all then.